Hi everyone, and welcome to week 1 of Policy and Law in Health Services. This week's topic is Introduction to Healthcare Policy. I'm going to try to do one of these videos every week and at least go over the week's topics, the discussions, the assignments, and some important content. So this week's student competencies are to analyze how current healthcare policies and laws influence the operations of healthcare facilities and protect consumers. We're going to differentiate between healthcare policy and healthcare law and define healthcare law regulations, rules, requirements, and standards. That is your first discussion. You're going to describe the role of government and non-government entities related to healthcare policy and law and know the difference between the two. And you're going to summarize the healthcare law and identify 2 policies designed to assist facilities in achieving a specific goal or outcome for compliance. That is your assignment. So there's your discussion and your assignment. So remember, in terms of the assignment, in this course, whenever there's a paper, it is usually a full 3-page research report. It should reflect some critical thinking and analysis. They should be supported by at least 3 scholarly, creditable outside resources. Now, that could be a peer-reviewed journal, healthcare journal, or law journal. It could be a government website. And please be sure to format with APA requirements. The topic is right there. So in our textbook, our reading this week for Healthcare Management, Organizational Design, and Behavior is Chapter 12. And there's 4 different content areas in Chapter 12. First one is federal policies and regulations. So this has to do with agencies that are within the Department of Health and Human Services. It has to do with Medicare and Medicaid, our Food and Drug or FDA laws, our antitrust laws, federal fraud and abuse laws. I put a little article in one of the announcements this week about a physician who was accused of fraud. HIPAA, privacy and security, and our EMTALA laws. State policies and regulations include things like licensure of physicians and nurses and CNAs. It includes certificates, and it includes relationships between state and federal laws. You may note that now in the center of all the political and medical news is that some states in our country are trying to override the federal Roe versus Wade law about abortions. It also talks about organizational strategies for regulatory compliance. Those are things like patient safety and regulatory compliance issues. Think about whatever kind of facility that you work at, who is in charge of regulatory compliance there? Is there a whole department? Is it one person? And then it also talks in this chapter about recent policy and regulatory initiatives, things like transparency, most importantly, healthcare prices, prices of hospitalization, prices of drugs, prices that places charge insurance companies for. And then also quality issues. Look at pay for performance and what that means. And then also specialty hospitals and clinical effectiveness. In the health information management text, Chapter 3 has to do with legal issues, and it goes over, again, roles of government entities and non-government entities. Some of the non-government entities that have a huge effect on healthcare facilities are the Joint Commission and other accrediting bodies like CARF and DPH. Understand the court system. Know the difference between federal versus state courts. Know the administrative bodies of the HHS. Think about health records as evidence. Think about some of the times that you have used health records and how they can actually be used as evidence in suits. And think about the kinds of legal procedures that happen in healthcare. Think about principles of liabilities. There are intentional torts and non-intentional torts. Malpractice can actually fall in both of those, but assault and battery, healthcare providers can be charged with assault and battery, abandonment, invasion, false imprisonment with the use of restraints, emotional distress, breach of confidentiality, and be very careful with social media and talking about anything at work. And then legal issues of health information management. There's HIPAA, privacy and confidentiality, access to healthcare data, and who really needs access to healthcare data? What is the minimum necessary standard? Informed consent and judicial processes that have to do with electronic records. And then fraud and abuse. Think about terms like whistleblowers and upcoding, and what are some of the resources to combat fraud and abuse? And then this is our discussion question. How does a policy different from a law? It's really important to understand that. A law actually sets out the standards and procedures that must be followed, but a policy outlines what a government hopes to achieve and the methods and principles it will use to achieve them. Think about those things and what is the difference, and write your best discussion about that. And then this week's paper has to do with examples of healthcare laws. I've just listed a few here. There are many. We have laws about securing medical records, informed consent, privacy, fraud and abuse, food and drug laws, HIPAA, human subject research is a really interesting one, civil rights, the Affordable Care Act, Children's Health Insurance Program. So again, if you have trouble thinking about a topic, give me an email. I do look at my email at least once a day, usually twice. So I look forward to your discussions and your assignments, and I'll see you online.